Our top focus at this hour, Belarus is facing international condemnation because of a rogue move by its president. On Sunday, President Alexander Lukashenko forced a Ryanair passenger flight to land in the capital Minsk by sending a fighter jet to intercept the plane traveling through the country's airspace. Belarusian authorities had flagged what turned out to be a false bomb alert to force the plane to land. And on landing, the 26-year-old opposition journalist who was on board the Greece-bound flight was then detained, along with his girlfriend. The airlines say that the flight crew had been notified of a potential security threat on board by the Belarus air traffic control authorities. They say that the authorities instructed them to divert the flight to the nearest airport, which was in Minsk. The journalist and her girlfriend were instructed then to get off the plane, and from there the jet was allowed to continue its journey. Passengers on board have described a terrified and nervous-looking journalist whose name is Protasevich as the incidents unfolded.
Jisai nieko nesakė. Jisai tik atsisuko į žmonės, kurie klausė jo. Jisai atsisuko ir pasakė, kad jisai turi mirties nuosprendį.
Belarus is now facing international outrage. Lithuania has banned all flights from entering the Belarusian airspace. Countries have condemned Belarus for diverting a plane flying over its territory to arrest the opposition figure. The United States has also condemned the incident. The State Department has called it a shocking act. Some European leaders have called for strict actions. However, the European Union is yet to discuss their response to what it calls a hijacking incident. Russia, on the other hand, was seen defending Belarus after initially issuing a guarded statement. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that Belarus was taking an absolutely reasonable approach to the diversion of a Ryanair passenger flight, which was carrying an opposition activist. Not just that, Lavrov said that Russia has requested consular access for Protasevich's girlfriend, who is a Russian citizen. Belarus has been slammed by the West over the backlash, but authorities said that Belarus rejects the unfounded Western accusations over this diversion, and the Belarusian government insists that it acted legally when they diverted a passenger plane carrying an opposition activist. The opposition has called this a hijacking operation by the Belarusian government. The incident comes as Belarusian authorities identify and intensify their crackdown on the opposition. As WION continuously tracked them, historic protests gripped the ex-Soviet country after last year's disputed presidential election. The European Union and the United States have even sanctioned Lukashenko and dozens of other officials with asset freezes and visa bans. Now, for more on this news development, we have Stuart Smith joining us live from Brussels. Stuart, thanks so much for joining us on WION World as One. Now, global condemnation is pouring in against Belarus and his president, of course, and the government is now being accused of state terrorism and of hijacking the plane. What is the European Union stand on the same, especially in the upcoming summit?
Well, it's divided as things stand. In fact, actually, rather interestingly, the people who are today meeting, the leaders of the 27 EU nations, are meeting today, but their president, the EU Council president, did not himself refer to it as a hijacking. He called it a forced landing on Twitter, and so did the European Council spokesperson. The people that are going out and making the claim that it was indeed a hijacking, that it was, in some people calling it state-sponsored terrorism, that's the EU Commission, a slightly different part of the European Union. So no consensus yet on what exactly happened, but this meeting amongst EU Council member states is going to talk about what happens next. They will look into it. They've asked the International Civil Aviation Association to look into what happened. It says that if it's true that this plane was forced down for political reasons, that is a breach of international aviation law. The European Council has a few options if they decide that this was indeed a deliberate attempt to try and detain a political activist. Sanctions are the most likely. Sanctions are the only thing which have been suggested yet by the EU itself, but there are other things that could happen. For example, EU member states could deny access to Belarusian airline, stop them landing in member states, or for example they could be forced, airlines in the EU be forced to fly around Belarus to avoid this happening again. But you can understand why the EU is so involved in this. Although Belarus isn't in the EU, it's a Polish the plane is registered to Poland. It's an Irish company. It was flying from Greece to Lithuania, full of EU member states' citizens. So a huge reaction from the EU because this is all happening in its back door, and there is joined up thinking mostly from the EU countries. It's just the EU Council hasn't yet declared it a hijacking.
Right. Now, Stuart, we're also getting reports of Russia, that is Belarus's longtime ally, coming out in support of its actions. How will the closeness between Russian President Putin and Belarusian strongman Lukashenko impact the politics in the region going forward?
Relations are very strong at the moment. As you could imagine, they're dealing with similar issues in terms of forceful opposition activism and also similar threats from the European Union regarding sanctions. Both countries are currently under EU sanctions. And so this is unlikely to have happened. Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, is unlikely to have done this if he thought there was any chance that Russia would disagree with it. May have not sought approval beforehand, but wouldn't have done it if he thought Russia wouldn't approve. And as we've seen, Russia has come out and says Belarus is entitled to take whatever action it deems necessary to ensure the safety of aircraft flying in its airspace. So it does at the moment have the support of the Russian government. And Belarus, of course, state media saying that this was for an emergency security situation. But we do also know from state media that this was ordered directly by Lukashenko, which certainly would not normally happen with a bomb scare on a flight. So interesting to see the parallels there with what state media is saying and what we're hearing directly from Lukashenko and the Belarusian presidency themselves. But yes, in terms of sanctions, that seems what's most likely to happen. However, a lot of EU countries will be pushing for further action because this is seen as a proper attack on EU citizens right on Europe's backyard.
Right, Stuart, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us on WION, and thank you for all your inputs. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.